All right, let's get into it. We're going to tackle one of the most important and, yeah, often most awkward parts of any relationship: how to actually talk about sex. And look, it might not feel like it right now, but this is a skill. And just like any other skill, it's something you can absolutely learn.
I mean, really think about that for a second. We meticulously plan our finances, our careers, our vacations, even what we're going to eat for dinner. But when it comes to our intimacy, we just kind of cross our fingers and hope for the best, right? We treat sex like this magical, mysterious thing that should just work. But honestly, that hands-off approach, it usually just leads to a lot of confusion and frustration. And this is the reality for so many of us. We wait until something feels off, a dip in desire, a miscommunication, that feeling of being disconnected, to finally say something. But by then, the conversation is already heavy, loaded with all this pressure and anxiety. The whole goal here is to learn how to talk before it ever gets to be a problem. So, first things first, we've got to understand the roadblocks. Why is this one topic so uniquely difficult to bring up, even with the person you're closest to in the world? Well, it turns out we are all carrying a whole lot of baggage that we might not even know is there. Let's talk about something called pleasure thieves. I love that term. These are all those internal feelings that basically steal our connection and our enjoyment. We're talking about things like shame from how we were raised, that deep fear of being judged by our partner, or just plain old embarrassment that can shut us down before we even start. And here's the thing, so much of this challenge comes from the fact that we're not starting from a blank slate. Not even close. Many of us learned about sex from some pretty unreliable sources, right? Either from porn, which sets completely unrealistic expectations, or from a culture of silence that just taught us we don't talk about that. So a huge part of building a healthy sex life is actually unlearning all of that garbage. Okay, so before you even dream of talking to your partner, the single most important conversation you need to have is with yourself. Seriously, this is the foundation for everything else that's going to come next. And I mean it. Take a second and really ask yourself this question. What are those scripts running in your head? Do you tell yourself that bringing this up is just going to make things awkward, that your needs aren't valid, or that it's just your job to figure it all out? Naming those internal messages is the very first step to rewriting them.
And this is exactly why that self-reflection is so crucial. You just can't clearly tell someone what you want or need if you haven't figured it out for yourself first. You've got to understand your own history, the messages you've absorbed, and what you genuinely desire. That's what gives you the clarity and the confidence to communicate. Okay, you with me? Now that we've done some of that internal work, let's get super practical. I'm going to give you a simple, really easy to remember framework you can use for pretty much any difficult conversation, but it works especially well for talking about sex. It's called the 3 T's of communication. Think of it as your personal toolkit for navigating these tricky waters. It's designed to take all the guesswork and a lot of the pressure out of just getting the conversation started. And here they are, simple as this: timing, tone, and turf. Let's break down what each of these really means, and more importantly, how you can use them. First up is timing. This is so important. The absolute worst time to have this talk is right after a frustrating sexual experience or when one of you is already upset. A fantastic rule of thumb is the acronym HALT. Don't even try to have the conversation if either of you is hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. You've got to pick a moment when you're both feeling calm and can actually listen. Next up, tone. And honestly, this might be the most important T of all. Your tone sets the entire stage. You're not there to complain or to accuse your partner of anything. You're there to collaborate. Your tone should be curious. It should be open. Think of yourselves as 2 teammates trying to figure out a new play to help the team win. You have to avoid any hint of blame or shame, because that'll just put your partner on the defensive instantly. And finally, we have turf. And believe it or not, the bedroom is often the absolute worst place to have this conversation. Why? Because the pressure is just way too high in there. The key is to pick a spot that's neutral, somewhere low stakes. This quote just nails the point perfectly. Having the conversation while you're doing something else, like driving in the car or walking the dogs, makes it feel so much more casual and less intense. And that little bit about not making direct eye contact, that can remove a ton of the awkwardness and help you both open up and speak more freely. It's a game changer. All right, let's put this all together and see how it works in a real-world scenario. We're going to apply these ideas to one of the most notoriously tricky conversations a couple can have, talking about your sexual history. The classic dilemma, right? to share or not to share. This came up recently when former NBA player Iman Shumpert revealed that he gave his wife, Tiana Taylor, a full, detailed list of every woman he'd been with. So, is that kind of radical transparency the right move for everyone? Well, it's complicated. There are really strong arguments on both sides of this. For some, sharing everything builds this incredible foundation of trust and honesty. It stops your partner from ever being surprised by something later on, and it can actually give them confidence knowing there are no secrets. But for others, they argue the past is the past, that bringing it all up can create totally unnecessary insecurity, and that the real focus should be on the relationship you're building right now. This was Iman's reasoning, and wow, it's pretty powerful. For him, this wasn't about confessing his past. It was about protecting his partner in the future. He wanted to arm her with all the information so that she would never, ever be caught off guard or made to feel foolish. He saw it as a profound act of respect. So what's the verdict? The truth is, there is no single right answer here. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It completely depends on your relationship and what makes you both feel safe and secure. The goal isn't a number on a piece of paper. The goal is to build a rock-solid foundation of trust, however you and your partner decide to get there. So, where does that leave us? Let's bring everything we've talked about together and figure out what that first, small, totally manageable step could look like for you. Okay, here's what you need to remember. First, and this is a great one, communication is lubrication. It just makes everything in a relationship run that much more smoothly. Second, always start with yourself first. Get clear on your own feelings. Then, when you're ready to talk, use your toolkit, the 3 T's, timing, tone, and turf. Remember, you're going in as collaborators, not opponents. And maybe the most important takeaway of all, start small. You do not have to solve everything in one giant, scary conversation. And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. It doesn't have to be some huge, dramatic talk about your entire sexual past. Maybe it's as simple as asking, hey, would you be open to talking a little more about our sex life sometime? Or just sharing one small thing you really enjoyed recently. So what's one tiny step, one small conversation you could start to open that door?